Good day, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Today is very special because we have a special guest came all the way from Malta to tell us not only about their programs, to tell us more about the country, the culture, what is the common things between Malta and all over the world. Allow me with a very proud and I'm so pleased to introduce a dear friend who came all the way from Malta today to our office in Dubai. Dear Oliver, really thank you for coming.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Actually, good afternoon, but it's okay.
You can say it as much as you want. So how we say it in Malta, good morning, in the Maltese language?
So you would do it in a number of ways, either Lodwa Taiba, or you would say Marhaba, or
Marhaba.
Yeah, or
You have it.
or Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It depends on the mood.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So if you are so happy.
If you're very happy, you would say Bonjour.
Okay. And if you're sad, please don't tell me marhaba.
If you're sad, you avoid contact until you have your first coffee.
Okay, great. So marhaba, where it comes in the middle?
No. Marhaba is more like the official version. Mm-hmm. So when there is a speech or anybody, or as the president or the prime minister or a minister or anybody, the first thing it would be marhaba.
Nice.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, dear Oliver, first of all, really thank you for coming to our office today. It has been a pleasure to know you throughout the years.
Yeah.
And it's been an honor also to know today and to dedicate a time for all our viewers in our YouTube channel to tell us more about the country, about the programs, about all of this. But before we start, if we may just to tell everybody watching this video who we are and, what does the company do so far?
Okay, so good morning.
Good morning, and marhaba. Marhaba.
So I am Oliver Sa'id. I was originally born in Malta, raised in Malta, but for the last, say, 30 years, I've lived the vast majority of my time outside of the country. Mm-hmm. An investment professional. I'm a banker, an investment banker. Please don't hate me. I know.
Not at all.
No, because they say there are two occupations which will go straight to hell, which are the lawyers and the investment bankers.
I agree.
Okay.
So I am a lawyer. You are a banker. So
okay.
we're buddies.
So we'll go first class. Okay. So basically, I've been dealing with high net worth and ultra high net worth for a very, very, very long time.
How many, if I may to know, how many years?
Over 15 years.
15 years.
Yeah, with ultra high net worth over 15 years, with high net worth over 25 years. Mm-hmm. But predominantly my work today is ultra high net worth, those with 30 million plus, usually over 100 million. We have a lot of clients with above $1 billion.
$billion. So like 30 millions?
30 million is what defines an ultra high net worth.
Okay.
Our bulk of our clients really is above the 100 million. Okay. We have a lot of clients above the billion.
Okay, great. So now I know the question why I'm not one of your clients.
I'm
not there yet.
Yeah. Inshallah. Or we say in Maltese, yakalla yrit.
Yakalla yrit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like
inshallah,
in Arabic,
we use it.
Allah rad or Allah yrit.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. We do that a lot. We say that a lot. Okay.
Wow. That's great. That's good to know.
Okay.
So, dear Oliver, for the main talk today, to talk about the famous residency program and citizenship program that, as far as I know, that Malta is one of the leading countries towards the citizenship program and even also the permanent residency program.
Correct.
As of today, Malta is the only country in the European Union at the moment that it has a citizenship by investment program. And worldwide, it is the second expensive, let's say, or the second, expensive program in the world for the citizenship by investment program. And it is one of the very unique countries in European Union that it has a PR program. Majority of the common mistake, to be frank with you, that most of the people that they talk to me, they feel like all the countries, the EU countries that they have residency program, it is a permanent, which is it is incorrect.
Correct.
Malta, it has the permanent citizenship and not permanent citizenship. It is permanent residency program, as well as it can also pass to second generation and even up to the fourth generation, as far as I know.
I will go.
Great. So would you tell us more about first, let's say, the history of the residency program? And then, of course, we will talk about the citizenship program.
So Malta's had a residency program more or less now since the 1960s.
1960s.
Yes. So the first residency program was predominantly for the British. Keep in mind that Malta was part of the British Commonwealth. It is still part of the British Commonwealth, but it is, at the time, it was part of the colonial empire. Okay? So with Malta eventually gaining independence and so on and so forth, and with the strong link between Malta and the UK, it was felt that there should be a residency program for people who are of British descent. So Malta has had some form of residency program. In fact, it was one of the very first since the 1960s.
I don't recall any program that has residency.
No. It's very, yes. So Malta has been always at the forefront. Obviously, a number of countries issued their residency programs for various reasons. Malta, keep in mind that whereas a lot of countries actually take out residency programs primarily to balance their budget, you need to keep in mind that Malta, one of the major issues was, and at the moment is a massive problem, continues to be, is quality human resources. When you have a country which has consistently over the last 10 years exceeded the growth rate of most, with the exception of Ireland, most of the other countries in terms of economic growth, with Malta and Ireland always featuring first and second. The result on the ground is that you have effectively, notwithstanding what the statistics show, negative unemployment. So what effectively happens is you need to recruit quality resources. And quality resources, you don't just do it by offering employment. You also do it by getting the right investors, the people who want to have links, and so on and so forth. So residency has had a long history with Malta, not just with the current iterations, and there are actually more than the permanent residency and the citizenship. There are actually multiple programs. Okay, those are the two most common ones, but in reality there are more. Okay, so yes, so as you rightly pointed out, there are, let's focus on these two particular programs.
But we would love to know what are the others, of course.
Yeah, I will go into it. We'll do it.
So for the residency now, at the moment, with the current law, what are the process in general to get it, and how fast or how soon, and what are the benefits in general for the applicants who they are interested to apply for it?
Let's start with the benefits, and then we'll go into the timelines, what has happened, and what we expect to happen, because there are developments in that respect. So the benefits, as you rightly pointed out, is unlike all the other, let's call them golden visas, in Europe, Malta stands out with being the only one, with the exception of Cyprus, but Cyprus is not Schengen.
Yes,
okay.
That's correct.
With the exception of Cyprus, which is not Schengen, Malta is the only Schengen country which offers permanent residency. All the others have to be renewed.
Yes.
Okay. So, and this is important. Why? Because effectively, a person is getting permanent residency for life for themselves, their partner or spouse. They not necessarily have to be married. They can get parents from both sides, grandparents from both sides. This has to be done at the beginning, at the application stage. Eventually, the dependents, which are included, when they grow up, they can continue the same permanent residency at a small cost without having to reapply. Not only that, they can bring their partner and eventually also their children. So that means the grandchildren of the original applicant. So it means that one application covers 5 generations, actually, not 4. So applicant, parents, grandparents, children, and grandchildren. Okay, this is unique. And as you rightly pointed out, unlike other programs where eventually every 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, you need to reapply and so on and so forth, you don't have to go through that process, and you don't have to qualify for permanent residence. It is given to you at the start.
Okay, great. Very great. Can I know what do you mean about it's not renewable? Like you get it, you don't need to renew it.
No, you don't need to renew, because effectively, without obviously mentioning other countries, because it's not ethical, but all the other countries, every 2 years or every 3 years, depending on
the program, regulations,
you need to resubmit, or you need to repay, or you need to extend, or you need to maintain the property or whatever, in order for you to keep that residence.
Yes, which is, in my opinion, I call it a conditional residency.
Correct.
It comes with conditions.
Correct.
And it may not be able to be renewed if there is a new law that comes up upon renewal.
Correct. And what today applies, say, for restrictions of certain nationalities, or what today applies for certain restrictions on investments or maintaining,
yes,
might not necessarily apply into the future. And this puts applicants at a risk where they are in favor today and out of favor tomorrow. And we've seen this playing time and time again. We've seen it in the situation with Syria. We've seen it with the situation with Russians, where when they applied, they were viewed one way, and then eventually things happened because things deteriorated in their home country, and all of a sudden they are viewed differently. Once you are accepted as a member of the club, okay, unless you do something materially significant like money laundering or terrorism attacks or so on and so forth, which is obviously going to ask the government to withdraw, okay? But unless you get involved in something very serious on a personal level, not on a country level, there is nothing to worry about.
Oh, okay, great. So the residency card in Malta will not have an expiry date?
So it's a very good question, and most people do not know the distinction.
Yes.
Okay, so when you become a permanent resident, you are issued a permanent residence certificate. That certificate,
not a card first.
That's exactly.
Okay.
That certificate, which is the most important, is for life. Okay. Now, you are also issued a residency card, which is valid for 5 years. The reason why the card is valid for 5 years, and once every 5 years, you need to make a visit to Malta. By the way, there are no conditions that you have to live in Malta. There is no minimum day stay. Okay? But once every 5 years, you are meant to come to Malta to take fresh biometrics. Why? Because today you might have hair, and today, and the day after, like me, you lose your hair.
I can tell.
No, but joking aside, the whole idea is for a security perspective, fresh biometrics.
Yes.
Okay.
So every 5 years, you need to at least visit Malta for 1 day.
Yes.
Or a few days just to get the biometric for yourself and the family members, of course.
Correct.
To get a new card valid for 5 years.
Correct.
However, the permanent residency certificate will
is for life.
For life.
Correct.
And any new member of the family as a new baby or
automatically,
a new spouse of the kids, as example, it will be also.
So a new direct beneficiary dependent for the main applicant is automatically included with some documentation. The partner or spouse of the children, there is a process. There's an additional cost. Currently, it's 7,500. I think there is talk they're going to increase it to around 10,000. Okay, but you don't have to reinvest and reapply. Okay, so at that point, they can join in, let's call it the family circle.
Okay, great. Just one question come up in my mind. Since we mentioned some nationalities, I believe now some of the nationalities are banned to apply.
Correct.
Mainly the unstable countries in general.
Correct.
So what if I have a residency, a permanent residency in Malta, as I am originally from one of the countries that it is banned? And my son, once he grew, he got married from originally from one of his spouse, one of the nationalities that it is banned. Can she still apply as a spouse?
That's a very good question. And to be honest with you, it's usually on a case-by-case basis. It depends a lot on the countries. So there are some countries which are absolutely no-go.
Okay.
Okay. I'll tell you the reason why. Because if you look at the countries, there are 3 countries which are the absolute no-go, okay? And then there are the countries which tend to vary from time to time, depending on, let's call it the US travel blacklist.
Okay.
Okay? Which affect primarily the citizenship program, but in order for consistency, they're automatically transposed also to the permanent residency. The 3 countries which are absolutely no-go, come what may, are North Korea, Afghanistan, Iran. Okay, so those 3, they are like no, and no.
No.
Okay.
No for the adding spouses, but what about?
No, even for the original applicant. No, even for any links. No, for even anything.
But what if we have, for example, what if if I am one of them from these countries where the program allow me to apply?
Okay, then at that point it's different. If you are originally at the outset accepted, then it's a different story. The issue is primarily what happens, because keep in mind that the original application was on the main applicant. So you, and as long as also the dependent was added on, then yes. However, if the spouse stems from a country which is one of these three,
Okay.
to the stage, to be very frank with you, we never had that situation. I'm going to be very forthcoming with you. Keep in mind that the new residency program was launched in 2016 and the revised version is about 3 years old. So we don't have enough time yet to see the dependents growing up to the point where we are going to test this. My feeling is that if the partner or spouse stems from one of these three countries, the likelihood is that they will not be allowed. Okay? Their children would be, yes, because obviously they would born under a different situation.
Yes.
But the chances is no. You need to keep in mind. You need to keep in mind why this has come to be. Okay. So, as you rightly said, Malta is one of the most expensive citizenship programs worldwide.
The second in the world.
In fact,
I think the first.
I think, yeah.
Do you know the first country?
Which is one? Is Austria from?
No, not at all. The first country or the most expensive program the most expensive program for the country that have citizenship by investment program is Jordan. Jordan, $1 million. $1 million.
$1 million cost or investment?
It's investment.
Okay, so
it is investment.
Then we're going to have a friendly debate to disagree, where I will tell you that Malta significantly is more expensive.
Yes.
The reason why is because the outlay, first and foremost, the reality is that the outlay for the typical family of four in Malta is closer to $1.2, $1.3 million.
Yes.
But the big difference is here. The cost in Malta is a pure cost. It's not an investment. It's a non-recoverable investment.
Yes,
okay?
I agree. But like from the perspective of the total cost, primarily total cost, not the actual cost, because also in Malta, it's not only the investment amount that you have to invest, you have also to do a few other requirements to do it. But I would love to focus more with the first episode about the permanent residency. If I'm a permanent resident in Malta, of course that I will be allowed to travel all throughout the Schengen area for 90 days every 6 months. But inside Malta, what are the majority of or the most important benefits for me and for my kids, for example, to be a permanent or PR holder in Malta?
So first and foremost, allow me to expand something about what you just said about the travel rights. So depending on your nationality, the number of countries that you can travel to visa-free far extends the Schengen countries. And I'll explain to you why.
Okay, good to know.
So for example, if you are, I know this because we do a lot of them. For example, if you are Chinese, not only do you have the 28 Schengen states, plus the de facto other 4, which are microstates like Monaco and San Marino and so on and so forth. But you also have another 42 countries which you can travel to visa-free with the residency program. The reason why is because you have a number of countries which have a reliance on the due diligence of other countries. Let's take, for example, Saudi Arabia, where I am a resident and I have been there for a very long time. So in the case of Saudi, if you have a Schengen visa, a UK visa, or a US visa, automatically you can visit.
Yes.
Okay?
That's correct.
So you have a number of countries which rely on a number of other countries, knowing full well that their due diligence is exceptionally high.
Yes.
So it's, in fact, ironically, what we found out is that the permanent residency program of Malta, coupled with the original citizenship, actually more often than not, is stronger than a new Caribbean program. Ironically. I know it sounds strange, but it's a reality. Okay? But let's ignore the travel rights. The reality is that being a permanent resident in a country which has economic growth and which has some other advantages which I'm going to go into, distinguishes it from the other countries which provide a golden visa. So, again, not ethically right for me to mention some of the other countries, but for most of the other countries which are popular at the moment, you will see that Malta is, in one instance, 8 credit ratings higher than one country, 7 credit ratings higher than another country. The GDP per capita is completely blows them away. Plus, Malta has 2 national languages, Maltese and English. Keep in mind that Malta, as I told you earlier, was part of the British colony, let's call it that way. And as such, most of the business transaction happens in English. So when you have a situation where you are not taking the program purely for a travel perspective, but you want to have a footprint to do business, in order to send your children for education, in order for them to have and you to have the inroads into doing something more than just using it for travel, then quite frankly, arrogantly, if I may say, there isn't a single country in Europe that comes anywhere even close, not even remotely close, okay, because of the additional. Obviously, a card which gives you the right to access the Schengen area, it's the same, whether it's Greek, whether it's Portuguese, whether it's Italian, whether it's Spanish, they're ultimately the same. There isn't an advantage, mine is nicer because it's this one, okay? I guess you can argue that in favor of the Italians, you come with a nicer accent. But, but from an economic perspective, there is no way that you can. Also, going back to what I told you, the very fact that it's permanent means that you don't have to worry that you're going to set up your business, you're going to set up roots, your children are going to go to education. All of a sudden, at the back of your mind, you're always thinking, what if it does not get renewed and I have to uproot my family? So there it is
impossible, because at the moment that you have the permanent residency, it is irrevocable in case unless you have a major matter, which is in any country that it has the right to revoke in case if there is a major matter. But for the permanent residency holders, let's say inside Malta, do they have the same rights as a Maltese inside Malta, or there is a small difference, or there is major differences?
There are differences. So first
major?
of all, I wouldn't call them. If you look, let me explain the reality on the ground. Okay. So first and foremost, if you are living on the ground, the odds are that you have some kind of business activity, or you are employed, or you're doing something, right? At that point, you are a member of, let's call it the active workforce, okay? And that then automatically falls under national insurance, which means you have the right, like everybody else, for the public healthcare, which is exceptionally good, and the education and so on and so forth. So from that perspective, there are zero differences. If you opt to send your children to private education, then there is not going to make any difference whatsoever as to whether you are Maltese or foreign. So again, there are no distinctions here, not because you are not a Maltese citizen, you're going to be ending up paying more for private education than you would be as a foreign. They're exactly the same. Okay. There are obviously some particularities. For example, you cannot vote.
Obviously.
Okay. And in terms of certain eligibility for certain particular benefits, or grants, they may more applicable to Maltese citizens than to. So there are differences. I wouldn't say they are huge differences, but there are differences.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the major matters, or the basic, let's say, rights for the Maltese citizen or the permanent residency holders, it seems that it is almost the same, because the permanent residency holders, they will look for the education, they will look for the healthcare sector. And then the rights, of course, to live and to do a business inside the country. That's the majority thing that they will look for in general. The very common question about if I am a permanent residency holder in Malta, do I need to pay taxes? Okay. And if I need to pay taxes, what are the averages? Because like neighboring countries, I believe that they have a huge percentage of taxes. So I would love to know from that perspective.
Okay, so this would be a separate podcast. So I'm going to try. I'm going to try and keep it as simple as possible, and I'm going to go into the extreme, even if a person becomes a citizen, and I'll explain to you why. So Malta's legislation is a combination of common law, so under the British, and civil law. Okay, so it's both. Okay, now Malta inherited the concept of residence and domicile. Okay, from the British. Okay. Now, for our audience, very quickly, I'm going to explain the difference. So domicile is your ancestral links, where you were born, where your family is, where your graveyard is, where your children go to school. It requires a massive amount of links in order to be domiciled in a country. Okay? So by virtue of becoming resident, permanent resident, tax resident, or even a citizen, does not make you automatically domiciled. Okay, and this is critical. Even if you become a citizen, that means you get the passport, you are not automatically domiciled in Malta. In fact, it would take decades for you to actually become domiciled, and on the condition that you have foregone all the other links in all the other countries. So it's you, because you can only be domiciled in one. Okay, so why is this important? Because tax in Malta on a personal basis is calculated whether you are a resident and or domiciled, okay, and then it makes the distinction on the source of the revenue and whether it is remitted or not. Okay, so let's give practical examples. Otherwise, the users, the end listeners are going to get a bit lost. Let's say you have someone who's become, let's say someone who is from I don't know, Jordan. Okay, moves to Malta. Okay, does not even say that he moves to Malta. Acquires permanent residence. Okay, at that point they are neither resident nor domicile, which means that their global income that they continue to make and keep outside of Malta, and global capital gains completely is tax-free.
Okay. So any worldwide income that it is taxable free, let's say, in Malta.
Correct. So what happens is the only way that a person is going to be taxed is either if they generate income in Malta, okay, or if they repatriate income into Malta. But if they repatriate capital gains into Malta, then it is not taxable, even if they become a citizen.
Maltese citizen, okay.
Okay.
So just for me to understand it better. So if I'm a permanent residency holder and my income from outside Malta, so I don't have to pay tax in Malta.
If you don't remit it into Malta, then you don't pay tax.
Okay.
If you do remit it into Malta, then you have to pay tax.
And what is the taxes if?
It varies from 0 to 35, depending on a number of variables.
Okay, so the maximum is 35.
Yes, but even then there are structures, legal structures you can use, which can bring that down substantially. Okay.
Okay. So from my perspective, that if you are a permanent resident holder in Malta, you don't need to pay taxes unless you get the funds in Malta, and then the percentage it go up to 35 based on the total amount. Based
on a number of variables, if you repatriate capital, so for example, you sold a house, or you had an investment, or you accumulated your savings for a few years and they were invested, and now you're cashing them out, and you repatriate it, that's considered capital, so you don't pay tax.
Okay.
But if you are repatriating, say you have a foreign job, and you're repatriating income into Malta on a monthly basis to sustain your family, then at that point it would be taxable.
Taxable. Okay. If I mean to know the income inside Malta, what are the taxes towards that income, regardless that income, if you sell a property, if you have salaries comes from Malta, any income from Malta, what are the tax rate?
Same thing. There is no distinction.
Up to 35.
Up to 35%.
Based on the amount.
But there are various schemes to assist. For example, if you buy a property and you rent it, then there is a flat withholding tax of 15%.
15%.
Okay, so that's flat. That's it.
15% of the rent.
Okay, and you don't even have to then redeclare it and so on and so forth. It's like clean, easy, and you continue it.
Okay.
Overall, actually, the tax load in Malta is not that high. So compared to any of our neighbors,
one of your neighbors, they have 65%.
Yeah, but without going into the
without
going into criticizing the particular neighbor, I think they're crazy.
65 is quite a lot, but we do respect that their law. It's their matter. But 35 is almost half. It's almost half.
And you get the benefit of it. It's not like you're paying and you don't get the benefit. You pay and you do get the benefit.
Talking about the residency in Malta and talking about the permanent residency and so on, the population in Malta at the moment, if I may to know,
Okay, so the population size is going to sound very small, but the population density is quite high. You need to keep in mind that Malta's native population is closer to around 600,000.
600,000.
Okay. In
Not
summer,
all Maltese, of course.
no. Because one fourth of the workforce is foreign. Because the Maltese workforce is completely exhausted, and as I told you, the Maltese workforce is impossible to fulfill all the requirements of the economic growth of the country. So the number of people being recruited from overseas continues to rise daily. Okay. The reality, however, is the population density is high. You need to keep in mind that Malta, think of it a little bit like a city-state, like in the old city-state, like Genova, Florence, and so on and so forth. So today we have places like Singapore or Hong Kong, where you would have a small land area with a high population density. Or you would have cities, be it London or be it other places, where again, the population density is high. Think of Malta, instead of a country, think of it as a city-state, because it's a small country with a high population density.
Great. So, I would love to let the people who are watching this video, the small summary about, if I am interested, what are the basic steps that I have to do throughout the time until I become a resident, permanent residence?
Okay, so the requirement of Malta is really not that complicated, in that ultimately you need to show that you have a certain amount of wealth. Realistically, realistically, notwithstanding what is written on paper of €500,000, realistically it needs to be closer to €650,000, your total net worth. You need to have a liquidity of around €150,000, realistically.
So €650,000 as a net worth.
As a net worth of which
assets, stocks,
whatever,
cash,
real estate, house, land, whatever, of which minimum you need another 150 and another 150 realistically liquid. Okay.
So cash as minimum,
Stocks,
as low as 150.
Yes, because you will need to maintain that in order to, for certain reasons. Now, unlike other programs where first you put in the money or you pay the money or you buy the property or so on and so forth, Malta, both programs, works by first you submit the application and you pay the minimum for the due diligence.
Okay. Only due diligence fees.
Yes, the due diligence fees. Okay. And the approval comes about 8-12 months later, with the condition, let's call it that way, that you are going to fulfill the criteria and pay the contribution, or you're going to buy the property, or so on and so forth. Why is this important? Because we feel, and here I'm going to say we as Maltese, as a proud Maltese, we feel it's much more ethical to give the assurance to the investor that they are going to pay the minimum possible. They're going to be seen as whether they are going to be accepted as a member of the club. Keep in mind that Malta due diligence is and will continue to be one of the strictest, if not the strictest, in the European Union.
Yes, I agree.
So for them, they're going to say, listen, you apply to become a member of the club. We thank you for your interest. We want to see who you are. Inshallah, you're a good person. You will be accepted. You can pay the membership fee. If you don't fit the criteria of the club, at least your loss is limited. Okay. We feel it's much better, much more ethical than asking a person, Baba, you have to buy a property, have $1 million, and then inshallah we'll tell you. No, this is completely the other way around.
Okay. So basically you have to pay only the due diligence fees.
Correct.
For the family, if they are a family, based on the number of the families and so on.
Correct.
That's it. Correct. And in case if the application is rejected, these are the fees are non-refundable in any way.
Correct.
But once you get the approval, for how many days or what is the period to fulfill all the requirements to become? Okay. So the process will take between...
There is some part of it is within 28 days, a small part of it, the rest is 8 months.
Okay. So basically the process takes between 8 months till 12, right?
Now, this is the part that has changed. What has happened is the number of applications on the Maltese program, in part because people figured out that it's permanent and not temporary. And in part because of what has made some other programs much less attractive. The number of applications of Malta shot up like a rocket. Okay. And what has happened before, what used to take 3 months, the authorities were swamped, literally drowned in files. That's literally what has happened. Okay. And now the process is taking closer to 12. The government authorities have committed that within a period of a year, they're going to bring that down back to 6 months, which is reasonable.
Great.
Okay, so realistically, I would say 6 to 12 months.
Coming to this, since now there is increase in number of applications, is there any limit per year or limit?
Not on the permanent residency. There is a limit, but that's on the citizenship.
Okay. So there is no limit for the permanent residency program. Okay. We talked about the matter of the processing time. We talk about the benefits and so on. I would love to hear from you also. If I need to live in the country first, from the cost effective in general, from the food, the supplies, the rent of the apartments, or maybe buying an apartment, from the like any other expenses, that the daily expenses from electricity, from water, from all of this, like comparing to the other countries or to the neighboring countries and so on. If I need to think that Malta is my retirement destination, let's say, is it really cost effective compared to the others?
It's a very difficult question because it varies tremendously on the comparison. I would say okay, we need to distinguish between what is basics and utilities, like, for example, foodstuffs. I would say then I would go into energy, and then I would go into real estate. Let's put all those three, and let's also call education. Okay, let's take a benchmark with, say, since we're in Dubai, let's take UAE. Now, UAE is high. Okay, so maybe it's not the ideal benchmark.
I agree.
Let's take Italy. Let's take Italy. Okay, let's take Italy. Okay, so generically, I would say foodstuffs would be more expensive than Italy. Okay, in part because the bulk of the food is imported. Okay.
Yes.
Energy costs are significantly less than Italy. Okay. Education costs, for the value, even private education, still cost a fraction of what the top education costs in the UK and in UAE. I wouldn't quote Italy because Italy has its own education system, which is a bit different. But it's not cheap, but the value is definitely there. Real estate is the killer. That's the one which is expensive.
Okay. Due to the limit of the land,
because effectively what has happened is you have the perfect storm. You have a situation where the land mass is small, the population growth is very significant because of inward migration. Okay, and the economy is growing. So if you see historically the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, the value of the property consistently has gone up. And the return has always been constant. But the typical, let's say, if you need to get an apartment in a decent place, say somewhere in the region of 100 square meters or 220 square meters, you're probably realistically looking somewhere between $300,000 to $400,000, okay, for a normal apartment. If you're looking for a small villa, say 300 square meters, you're probably in the $1.5 million. Okay. If you are looking for something fancy, then the number is going to go up significantly.
But the idea that if I buy a property today, most likely in the 1 year or 2 years from now, then the profit or the asset of the property will be increasing in any way. What is the average in general, like 10%? 2%?
Over the last 10 years, I would say the average has been 7.
7?
7, yeah.
That's very good.
Yeah. Consistently, this is not sales talk. People can look at it at the National Statistics Office, which publish statistics from the government perspective. It's been consistently that. But as I said, it's driven, rather than driven by speculation. Malta does not build to speculate. Malta builds to satisfy. So it is the demand that actually more often than not exceeds supply. So yes, so that is the reason why, because as I'm telling you, the land mass is what it is. There is inward migration and the economy is very strong. So yes, it is not cheap. I'm not going to deny it. Even the rent is not cheap. But the foundations are very solid.
Great. What about the weather? Like, do we have 4 seasons? Do we have 2 seasons? Do we
Okay, so again, in the advent age of Google or now ChatGPT,
right.
people can Google. Malta has been voted repeatedly as having one of the best climates in the world. So you get reasonably mild winters, wet, typically ranging 9 degrees to 14 degrees during winter.
Nice.
Okay.
I believe no snow, right? There's no snow.
No snow.
Don't come, yeah.
Summer typically vary between 30 to 34 degrees, but in the evening it drops down by 10.
Till 10? Wow.
Yeah, no, it drops 10 degrees down.
10 degrees down,
So
okay.
it goes to 20, 24. So it's,
Amazing.
yeah. So basically you can relax, you can go out, you can have your so you look at your cup and look at my cup.
Yes, I want to ask you about that.
Let me explain why this is interesting, because it really signifies Malta is a fusion culture. Okay, and the best way to describe it is it's a fusion between the Arab, the British, and the Italian. And I'll explain to you how it comes together. Okay, because for the people who are seeing it, they might be curious. By the way, a lot of people are unaware that they have repeatedly seen Malta many times without knowing that it is Malta. Okay, because Malta features into a lot of Hollywood movies. So in a couple of weeks' time, Gladiator 2 comes out. Gladiator 2 was mostly shot in Malta. What you see, that's the Colosseum, that's all in Malta. That's not in Rome. Gladiator 1 was shot in Malta. Jurassic Park Dominion was shot in Malta. The Count of Monte Cristo, Season 1 of Game of Thrones, Troy, By the Sea. If I can continue on and on and on and on. All of these were shot in Malta. Okay? The reason why, because Malta was taken over by a huge amount of different cultures. So in a very limited space, the people who want to shoot against a different background can get the architecture one. They want Arab, they can get Arab. They want British, they get British. They want Norman, they get Norman. They get British, they get French, they get Italian. Whatever they want, you can go, you shoot the architecture, and halas, it's done. Okay? Now, let me go back. So keep in mind that Malta and Sicily were part of the Arab Empire. Italy, as we know today, did not exist at the time. So Malta and Sicily were part of the Arab Empire, which means people wore the black veil, the women wore the black veil, okay? If you see them in movies like The Godfather in Sicily, and La Familia, the family, and the mother is the center of the nucleus. This comes from the Arab side. In fact, the Maltese language, the grammar is 100% Arabic. The vocabulary is mixed. So it's a mixture of Arabic, Italian, and English, but the grammar, let's take this, ktib. Okay, let's look at this. Okay, this is ktib.
You call it ktib.
Yeah, but forget about the ktib with the vocabulary. Let's do now the grammar. Jena ktibt, inti ktibt, okay? Huma kitbu, aħna ktibna. So this is all Maltese.
Maltese.
Yes. So the grammar is 100, it's not 99.9. The grammar is 100% Arabic.
That's surprising.
Yeah, okay. Now, so you get the family and the origin of language, including the numbers, we had 98 Araba. This is all based on Arab. So anything which is old is Arab. So Maida, okay, Sama, Daul, whatever, all of this would be old, so it comes from Arabic. Anything which is new, which is more than 1,000 years now, will be most influenced by Italian. So this is Pinna, okay, which comes from the Italian side. Okay. Now, so the ancestry is Arabic. Then you were 260 years a British colony. So the steering wheel is on the right. We have the lead letter boxes. We have punctuality, education, structure, management. Very British. Very like tack. Very punctual. No messing around. Okay? This is all based on the British system. And this gives us a very strong foundation of management, education, and so on and so forth, right? But then, the reality, Malta is 50 miles, 80 kilometers away from Italy.
Yes.
Okay? So, it is hugely, from a way of life, it's hugely influenced by the Italians, which is the reason why you have the big coffee and I have the espresso. Okay? So what you have is in the evening, people like enjoying la bella vita, the beautiful time. So during the day, they work like tak. But then during the evening, it's more Mediterranean. Okay, so it's this fusion culture come together And that is more or less the Maltese culture. The joke is that we took the best of both, with the best of the three worlds. We took the family and the tightness of the Arabs. We took the management of the British, and we took the lifestyle and, to some degree, the food, to some degree, from the Italians. The disaster would have been, if I have a lot of Italian friends, and please don't kill me, the disaster would have been if we took the management from the Italian, okay, and we took the food from the English. I think that would have been really bad. But that's really it's a fusion culture.
That's great. That's very interesting, to be honest, and a lot of new information to me. What is the best cuisine? Let's say if we can talk about it in Malta.
Okay, again here you're talking fusion. So you will have the historical. Let's call them the historical meats. You would have fish, which in Malta we call hoot instead of samak, because obviously we are closer to the western part of
they call the fish hoot?
Yes, we call fish hoot.
Okay. I think hoot is in some of the
Arab
countries.
Yeah, so there's a whale. Yes. But then in the other
but in some of the Arab countries that they call the fish hoot. Yeah. I think Tunisian.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. So you have fish, you have haroof, lamb, which is normal. We have fennec, which is rabbit, which is the national dish. Okay. So those are the meats. Obviously, these are, let's call it the historical traditional, but the reality is now everything is there. The beefs and everything else.
Do you have good pizza there?
We have an amazing, now this is what I'm coming to. Now we have, then the Italian side is very influential. Unfortunately, I have too many Italian friends, and now I have become so difficult. Look, I love the Italians, but the Italians are very difficult when it comes to food. For them, it's their food, and everything else is bad.
And never,
Okay.
Yeah.
And they will, and if you take an Italian to an Italian restaurant in another country, they're going to go, it's like it's not the same. The taste of the tomato is not the right acidity, is not this and not that, and they are very particular. The only two places where honestly you can get great Italian food, like true the ones that the Italians will eat, is Malta and Italy. Because you have such a huge amount of Italians that come to Malta to open their own restaurants. Okay. Keep in mind the economy in Italy is not as strong as that in Malta, so you get a lot of. And keep in mind a lot of people speak Italian in Malta, and most Italians don't know how to speak English. So for them, they just come across. It's easy. They can just speak Italian. It's easy. It's fine. So yes, the short answer is in the evening you can have great pizza.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So by end of this podcast. What are the average of success rate, let's say, for the permanent residency applications, and what are the reasons of rejecting the applications in general? And later we will have an end from you with the Maltese language.
So I can only discuss what is official. The official acceptance rates is somewhere in the region of 85%.
85. That's very good.
Ours is closer to 98. Okay. There are two reasons why ours are higher. Two, arrogantly, we are extremely diligent as to how we prepare the file. And that's one of the major reasons. Obviously, we have done hundreds, if not thousands. The second reason is we are quite particular who to accept. So if we feel... Look, as we say, and I told you I lived in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
So I will say, alhamdulillah, we have all the business that we want. So if we feel that during the initial part of the application process, we are not convinced that it's going to go through, to be honest with you, we'd rather lose the professional fees and tell the client, listen, you're not going to go through, rather than lead them to believe that they're going to go through and they say, oh, I'm sorry, we tried our best, and it is not the way it works.
I agree.
Look, Malta is very sensitive, both in the citizenship and residency program. Really and truly, if there are 1,000 questions, and I'm not far, really and truly, they're asking 2 questions in 500 different ways.
Okay.
They're asking, who are you? Where were you born? Who's your family? Who are your friends? Where did you go to education? Who's your circle? What have you been up to? Have you gone into trouble? And so on and so forth. So they're basically looking at your background and your socioeconomic background, and you understand your proximity to toxic people or bad people or politically exposed persons and so on and so forth, okay? Not that, wait, that sounds really bad. I'm not saying that politically exposed persons are all bad, but they're looking at the risk.
Of course.
They're
They
looking
are
at
at
the
risk, of course,
Okay.
of course.
That's, I would say, about 20 to 30% of the questions.
Mm-hmm.
The 70% of the questions are really is, how did you make your money?
Okay, the source of income.
Source of wealth.
Okay.
So source of wealth in Malta is very, very sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
If they start getting a feeling that something is not adding up by a big amount, because no one has the paperwork to justify 100%. No one, not even if you are, as we say in Italian, Santa Maria Goretti, if you're the holiest of the people. You don't have it because it's impossible to have it all. But if the story starts really not making sense, then forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they are very sensitive to non-disclosure. If you did something wrong or there's something wrong, you say, listen, this is what happened. This is, yes, maybe I made a mistake and I rectified it, or this is what happened and this is so on and so forth. You disclose it. More often than not, we know from experience that they tend to be quite accommodating if it makes sense. Understanding.
Mm-hmm.
If they find out something that you did not disclose, that is where they start getting very edgy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because for them, the risk is, if you didn't disclose this, what other thing are you hiding?
Yes, exactly.
Okay? So for them, you are forthcoming. You see, in both programs, they protect the members of the club by the last member who comes in. If they bring in the wrong member in, you are not making an exception for that member. You are actually tainting every other member of that club.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So they are very sensitive. They are saying, listen, we are a club of people who want to move forward. They want to have a link to a country. They want to do business. They want to have permanent residency. They want to send their kids to education, or in the case of citizenship, they want to become a member of the ultra-exclusive club. But ultimately, you are impacting not just yourself, everybody else. So they are very, very sensitive, which is, we'll discuss this in a separate podcast, which is the reason why, even though they tried everything under the sun to try and shut down the Malta citizenship program, they did not manage.
I agree.
Okay.
And this is what we will talk about it.
Okay.
So by end of this first episode, what you would like to tell us more about Malta and the ending in Maltese language, which is close to the Arab culture in anyhow.
Okay, so first and foremost, jekk jiena ħankellimkom bil-Malti, intkom ħatifmuni. And what I just said is Maltese.
That's Maltese.
That's Maltese.
Okay, I did understand it.
Okay. So for it's funny. The first Saudi client that I came to Malta, very rich people have had enough of eating in fine dining restaurants. Mm-hmm. So he came. He said, "Listen, I just want to eat somewhere local. I want to eat some good food, but I don't want all this Michelin and the small food. I just want to eat." So he said, "So take me somewhere where we can eat." Okay. No problem. So we went to this typical place. We went in, and the guy obviously comes at the door. It's very informal. He said, "Kem edin?" I told him, "Erba." And I sat down, and there is no menu at all. "Andek menu?" And he said, "Okay." That guy goes, "This is Arabic. I can put Arabic on my CV." Look, I think, to be honest with you, I think that the best thing to do, because look, you can download and read all the financial reports from Standard & Poor's, Fitch, Moody's, in this day of age. You can see that everything we said about economic growth, safety, climate, everything else, everyone can verify very easily that we're saying we're not trying to sell something which is not the case. But I guess the big aha comes when a person actually comes to the country. Mm-hmm. When they land in the country and they understand the hospitality, they listen to the language, they eat the food, they visit the sites, they go to Medina, which is the old capital city. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think at that point is where okay, and you don't need to.
Now I get it.
Now you get it. Okay. It becomes very, very easy.
Great, that's great. So by ending this first episode, Oliver, really thank you. We came to know a lot of things about Malta. Of course, we will now have a small break, and we go for the second, which is the citizenship program. So everyone is watching us in the first episode. Really appreciate it, and thank you for watching. I hope that you get a lot of information about the residency program or the permanent residency program in Malta, and see you soon in the citizenship episode. We'll get there.